You know that feeling when you're so stressed and run down you just feel off? Maybe even annoyed at the whole world? Well, it turns out Star Wars actor Daisy Ridley knows that feeling all too well. But for her, it wasn't just stress. It was something much more specific. So today, we're going to use her story to really get a handle on this complex autoimmune condition known as Graves' disease.
I mean, this quote just nails it, doesn't it? Everything is functioning so quickly you can't chill out. That is such a perfect description of being wired and tired at the same time. Your body is just stuck in overdrive with no off switch. It really shows you what it's like to live with something before you even have a name for it.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with Daisy's personal health mystery, then we'll break down what Graves' disease actually is. After that, we'll get into the symptoms, look at the causes and risks, and wrap up with the good news, the different ways it can be treated. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Most health journeys kick off with that nagging feeling that something's just not right. And for Daisy Ridley, that feeling started at a time when, honestly, you'd expect to be exhausted, right after filming a really demanding project. So she had just wrapped this intense film called Magpie, and all of a sudden she's getting these weird hot flashes and just feeling completely drained. And you can totally see why she might have brushed it off at first, right? She even told Women's Health magazine that she just figured, well, I've just played a really stressful role. Presumably that's why I feel poorly. It's something I think a lot of us do. We blame our physical symptoms on stress.
And looking at this timeline, you can see how all the pieces started to come together. Those first symptoms, the fatigue and hot flashes, were really just the tip of the iceberg. By the time she finally went to the doctor, she also had a racing heart, shaky hands, and was losing weight. That cluster of symptoms was the big red flag that led her to a specialist. And boom, by September 2023, she had her diagnosis, which she then shared with the world about a year later.
Okay, so that's the human side of the story. Now let's switch gears and get into the science. What is Graves' disease really? So, at its core, Graves' disease is an autoimmune disorder. This basically means your immune system, which is supposed to be your personal bodyguard, gets its signals crossed. Instead of fighting off germs, it turns around and starts attacking your own thyroid gland. But here's the twist. It doesn't shut the thyroid down. It actually does the opposite. It puts the pedal to the metal and kicks it into overdrive. And this whole thing centers on this one little gland, your thyroid. It's this small, butterfly-shaped thing right at the front of your neck. Think of it as the control center for your body's metabolism. It's in charge of everything from how fast your heart beats to how warm you feel. So when that gland gets stuck in overdrive, it just floods your body with way too much thyroid hormone. That's a condition called hyperthyroidism. It's literally like someone cranked the engine on your body all the way to max. Everything just speeds up. And that right there, that's what causes that can't chill out feeling that Daisy described so perfectly. Okay, so we know what's happening on the inside, but what does all that internal chaos actually feel like on a day-to-day basis?
This really puts it all into perspective. On one side, you have exactly what Daisy went through, the racing heart, the weight loss, the shaky hands. But on the other side, you see the other classic symptoms, things like protruding eyes, what's called a goiter, which is an enlarged thyroid, and just feeling hot all the time.
And here's a more complete list. Now, the really tricky thing here is that these symptoms can creep up on you slowly, over a long time. That makes it so easy to just brush them off as, oh, I'm just stressed or I'm just really busy. And that's exactly why being aware of this stuff is so, so important. So this all begs the question, why? Why does this happen to people? What are the risk factors here? Well, the truth is, science doesn't have one single answer just yet. But the leading theory is that it's kind of a 1-2 punch. First, you might have the genes for it. It runs in your family. And then second, something in your environment, like a ton of stress or even an infection, acts as the trigger that sets the whole thing off. And while you can't exactly change your family tree, some of the other risk factors are things you have a bit more control over. Smoking is a huge one. It can make the eye problems that sometimes come with Graves way worse. Managing stress is also critical. And what's really interesting is that there seems to be a link to other autoimmune issues like endometriosis, which, as it turns out, is something Daisy Ridley has also been open about dealing with. Okay, so after all that, let's get to the most important part of this whole conversation, because a diagnosis like this is absolutely not the end of the story. In fact, it's the beginning of getting better. You can think of the treatments like a whole toolkit that doctors can use. They might start with medication to just calm the thyroid down. Or they might use something called beta blockers to get a handle on immediate symptoms like a crazy fast heartbeat. For more long-term fixes, there's stuff like radioactive iodine therapy or even surgery. But the foundation for all of it, that's the lifestyle stuff. Diet, exercise, stress management. That's where you can really take an active role in your own health.
And that's the bottom line here. Yes, Graves' disease is serious, but the key takeaway is that it is absolutely treatable. With the right medical help and some self-care, people can get their symptoms under control and live totally full, healthy lives. And that's really why it's so powerful when people like Daisy share their stories. Like this doctor says, getting diagnosed early is everything. The faster you catch it, the faster you can start treatment, which helps you avoid bigger problems down the road and just feel better sooner. It really makes you think, right? When someone in the public eye talks about their health, it's more than just a headline. It's a huge reminder for all of us to actually listen to our bodies, to not just write off those weird symptoms as just stress. It's about being your own best advocate for your health. A story like this really brings that lesson home for every single one of us.